sessions, I have had that opportunity, and I have taken advantage of the opportunity to establish relationships with legislators on the other side. I would say that to some extent, I had some success. I was able to get a bill passed. Of course, Burl is used to that. I was not. But what it meant was that I had to establish a relationship, nurture that relationship, and work that relationship to get what I wanted.
Oh, Valerie, just a quick follow-up. What was the bill?
It was a bill for the town of Chapel Hill to expand its economic development opportunities. It was House Bill 305, and it is now session law, I think 2013-173.
Greg, since you're named after a baseball player, I'm going to throw you a curveball. Who do you think would be the next Speaker of the House, and what qualities are you looking for in a new Speaker?
I don't have speculation on who the next Speaker will be. We know that there are somewhere between 3 and 7 serious candidates. From the Democratic side of the aisle, I think that what we care about the most is that the Speaker runs the House in a fair way. We saw during the last session a lot of parliamentary procedure that was used to defeat Democratic amendments, and we saw a lot of backroom procedure that didn't give us a fair playing field. So for instance, when the House budget was introduced this year, it was sent out to us at 11:30 at night, and we were expected to start debating it at 1 o'clock the next day. I felt it was impossible to digest a 500-page piece of legislation and make an informed decision about what I should do the next day. Now, of course, the Republicans all knew what was in it because they'd been briefed on it before it was made public. So I would support any candidate who would tell me that they're going to make a level playing field for both parties.
Okay. So now we're going to move on to the commission race. We had a coin flip earlier, and Mia won the coin flip and chose to be the receiving team. So Gary, you're going to kick. The first question is, hold on, sorry, I have it right here. If you could assess the county's economic development strategy, including the use of incentives, and tell us, assess whether you would support additional incentives and for what.
I would support additional incentives. Incentives have worked well in Chapel Hill overall, and I think that plan, that strategy that Chapel Hill used to get economic development on its way would be very good for the county as well.
Can you be more specific in areas that might need incentives?
Basically to decrease the tax base and try to increase business, more towards the businesses aspect and less on the residential at this point.
Okay. Mia, would you like to respond?
Sure. So the thing with incentives is that I think they have to be used judiciously. It's an issue that I would have to learn, or I will learn more about, and we'll be looking at in terms of the case, but the cases in which they'd be presented. I think the county has really been going in the right direction and has done. Certainly, it was a really big deal that the county, in partnership with the state, did land the Morinaga candy plant. Besides its candy, what's not to like?
And that's in Mebane, correct?
It's in Mebane, but it's in Orange County,
yeah.
which is really very important. And so, to some extent, the story will be told. We'll see how that goes, but I think landing that big fish will help with other things. And I also think in general with economic development, you have to look all up and down the scale in terms of large businesses, and certainly very large as that size, all the way down to small businesses. But that's something I look forward to learning more about and working on as we go forward.
Gary, did you want to?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
Being very cautious has its good points, but since Chapel Hill has done this, I feel there will be no need for it to actually analyze the situation and then get a fully go-ahead support on that. That's right, this is me.
Okay. So we're now going to turn to Valerie. You're going to get the first question. This is about, and full disclosure, it's self-serving for the media, but I would like to know how you feel about, as you know, certain legislative communication is not part of the Open Records Act. It's protected under attorney-client privilege. We would like to know, not just for the press, but for citizens, how do you feel about that kind of correspondence being protected, and would you support a more open records law for those correspondences?
I would. When I ran for the House seat, one of my platform goals was to have a more open and transparent government. And I was asked at a forum during that time, well, how do you plan to accomplish that? I didn't have an answer at that time. I was still learning. But I think that most of the folk with whom I work understand that in order for our constituents to be involved, they have to know. There were times when I didn't feel that I was getting communication that was open enough for me to even make a decision on a bill that was being passed. I read a particular bill at 11 o'clock before I went to sleep, and when I woke up and went to committee meeting at 8:30 the next day, that bill had changed. So I think that we need to ensure that the legislators and the constituents understand what's going on.
Verla, same question.
Well, thanks. Actually, I'm happy to have an opportunity to respond. And I agree that we need more transparency. We need access to the information. I do think that our legal staff have a responsibility to keep the work that they do with a legislator private. So during the process, while a bill is being formed or while research is being done, I really don't have any problem with that. But part of the problem is that once the bill's done or once it's brought immediately to the floor without that period of time where people have the opportunity to go back and look at how the decision got made and all the information that was available. So I think that there are certain reasons for that privilege at a certain point in the process.
And just as a follow-up, at what point in the process then should it become open?
Well, I think before any decision's made, before any debate is made, and that the public, the media especially, need to have access to that to get the information out to the general public, so the general public, if they come to hearings, will be well-informed citizens.
Greg, same question.
I think that first it's important just that all of us recognize that in today's world, our electronic communications probably aren't as private as we think they are, no matter what. So there's one element of this question, which is to simply say that given what we know about what's accessible, whether you want it to be or not, it's probably better to go with a rule of transparency than trying to hide. Practically, as a legislator, I would like the opportunity to work with legislative staff to figure out my ideas before they become public. You know, if I'm working on a bill, say, to provide additional access to reproductive and contraceptive care for women, I would like to be able to work out the details before my thoughts become public. But once I'm ready to negotiate that with other legislators, that would be the point at which I think people deserve to see how the sausage is made.
So if you were going to email, for example, Valerie and Verla, that would be open records to you because you would then have worked through your ideas, and at that point, why not know?
Correct. And I think most people in the General Assembly understand that if you're going to have that type of conversation with a colleague and you don't want it to be public record, you probably need to do it face-to-face behind closed doors anyhow. There's ample opportunity to do so.
Thank you. So now we'll move on to Commission. Mia, you're going to get the first question, then Gary, and then Mia again. Affordable housing has long been an issue in Orange County, particularly in Chapel Hill. So how do you work to offer affordable housing in the county, and please offer specific ideas? And for example, Chapel Hill does have inclusionary zoning, which for those of you at home, that means that if a developer has more than 5 units, they have to provide, or are strongly encouraged to provide 15% of their other units for affordable housing. However, that's only yielded 230 units in 15 years. So Mia, tell us about affordable housing and what can Orange County do?
Well, as you point out, so far the bulk of the work really has been done by municipalities, because I think that's where the bulk of the growth has been. In terms of what the county has done so far, it's really kind of worked around the edges in terms of, you know, smaller kinds of things to help folks stay in their houses, but not really gone with a broader policy. And so there's a couple of things I think about this, is that in fact it really has to be regional. One of the things we know from school system is kids people move from place to place, so I think it has to be working closely with the municipalities. And in addition, we have to work with the nonprofits, like the Community Home Trust, which is the nonprofit that gets the most money from the county at this point, of all the nonprofits that are funded. That being just targeted at one level of income. However, we'll have to talk about it more because I'm out of time.
Gary, what are your thoughts on how more affordable housing can be created?
Well, everything Leah said is true, but if you get follow-up on what's going on in Chapel Hill and Carrboro, all their current plans have been very successful, they're very optimistic, so actually the county can learn a lot by just seeing what Chapel Hill and Carrboro are doing, and I just wanted to add that to that.
And just to play devil's advocate, do you think 230 units in Chapel Hill over 15 years is successful? Either one of you can answer that.
No, that's not successful. It is a very difficult, tricky issue, and I don't think we've found the answers. Some of the things that Chapel Hill in particular had done over having developers include units within their development, at least in the ones I'm familiar with, it didn't really work. They found ways to support the letter of the law, but not the spirit of the law.
Okay. Moving on back to the legislature. One thing that we were wondering is involving the economy. Many of you already touched on that in your opening remarks. And the inequality of wealth that is, the gap is widening in the state. I mean, I know this is a broad question, but do you have very specific ways? I think some of you mentioned the EITC. What are ways where, twofold, one, where we can put more people back to work, and also, along with that, I know that there was some talk of tagging or pegging the minimum wage in North Carolina to the inflation. Could you talk about that as well? I know that's kind of two questions, but why don't we start with Greg and move down?